So that's what we're doing this morning. It's testimony time. We don't often do this on this big scale. We like to drag somebody up and say, hey, tell us what happened. What did God do this week? You know, looking at how the victory of Jesus has made a difference in people's lives. We like to do that. We don't do that enough. So I'm going to be bugging you guys, asking you, and then I'm going to be dragging you up here to do that on a regular basis. So beware. I may ask you. But these people have the courage not only to get on an airplane and travel all over the world and risk getting infections and diseases and all kinds of things that they're susceptible to there and not here, but they're going to come up and do a thing in front of everybody. And it's going to be live on YouTube. Woo! So thousands, millions of people, your fans everywhere, are going to be here. Yeah, so come on up, Sophia. This is Sophia. Sophia Crespin. You're going to sit here so that I can look at you. There you go.
Hello.
Say hello. There you go. There you
Job.
go. Yeah. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Did you grow up here? Is this your home church? And what made you decide to join YWAM and do something crazy like go to Perth?
Well, my favorite part about being in a different country was explaining where you're from. So first you'd say, I'm from British Columbia, and they'd be like, where's that? Canada, of course. So if you have a few Canadians in the room, they'd be like, okay, BC, where are you from? And I'm like, okay, I'm from the Okanagan. And they'd be like, oh, what part? And I'm like, okay, do you know what Kelowna is? And some would say yeah, someone would say nay. And then I'd be like, from Kelowna, there is this place called Penticton. And far, far, far away from Penticton is a ski resort called p.a.o.c. And you'd lose them somewhere along that line, but a few of the true North Canadians would actually know where that is.
Nice.
So I have been in p.a.o.c. for about 15 years. I grew up in Cleveland when I was just, hi. That's where I'm from.
Awesome.
What were the rest of the questions?
And the rest of the questions, what made you to decide to leave this beautiful place and the smaller but more beautiful place of Apex to go to Australia and to join up with YWAM? Why YWAM?
Well, I had always heard about YWAM from the congregation. I know there's a couple of you guys who have been YWAM moms, YWAM people, and it always sounded like something crazy and stupid enough to do. So I decided to take a gap year. I was dead set. It was last December 31st, I was like, okay, I'm doing university. I know what I'm doing with my life. I was so excited. I'm like, okay, it only took me 4 years of high school to find out what I'm doing. And then it came like January 1st, and I was like, what if I don't want to do that? And about the end of January, I'm like, why not YWAM? Freaked out my entire family. Told them I was going halfway across the world. And they're like, what is with that? And I'm like, human trafficking. And they're like, what is that? So I told them I'm doing a human trafficking program that teaches and educates the world and the places that we go in about human trafficking and prostitution. And if you can follow that buzz line and that beeline, that's kind of how I ended up in YWAM, was because, I thought Australia was warm. No one told me I was going during the winter. And I'm from Canada, so I was like, why not go somewhere warm? B, I thought I was going to the Philippines in the warmth. It was actually the rainy season. So it was pretty really much sick. All God.
There was a lot of sickness, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Except not in graphic detail. But yeah, it was an adventure. Did anybody track with Sophia with Facebook and emails and hear sort of the play-by-play of what was happening? It was quite an adventure because things would happen newly every week, every month. And it was really exciting for us to be hearing the updates and praying along with her and supporting her. And it was really exciting. It's like a member of your family going out and doing something, and you pay attention because it's super exciting. And we kind of sent her as a church. And it was really an important thing that you did. And we're so glad that you did and went, and to hear your story. So I asked Sophia to give us a couple of questions that she would like to answer. So let's start with the first one here. How have you personally seen the lives of people around you change on outreach?
Yeah, this was, I prayed about a few questions to ask myself, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and I was in the Philippines for 3 months, and the thing with our team was that we spent 6 weeks in one city called Navotas. It was a fishing capital of the Philippines, and we spent the last 6 weeks in another city called p.a.o.c. So my stories jump from A to B, but that's because my team did. So in Navotas, it was, to paint a picture, it was right by the ocean. We had a nice stinky ocean breeze coming in every day, and lots of fish too. It was actually one of the more slummy communities. We actually had a lot of millionaires, like millionaire Filipinos, living among the slums. And so we did a lot of work there with the homeless population. We did a lot of work in the slums and in the entire community. The churches were pretty poor, but they had a lot of great people in them. So our favorite place to go was called C4. It was right by the ocean. It had a stage, it had kind of like a stadium, it had seating, and here there was a lot of students who would come and they would practice dancing or singing, but there were also a lot of homeless families in that area as well. So we went one night and we had one girl on our team, her name was Amy, and she was studying medicine. And she met this little girl, and she bandaged up her foot or her hand. And from there, we actually got to meet her family, her mom, Anna, her other sister, her baby little brother, who was no older than a year, and her husband. And we told them, like, hey, this is your daughter. We met her, we kind of fell in love with her, and we got to meet the entire family. And so we went back for the next 4 or 5 weeks, and we kept inviting them to church. But because the Philippines was a Catholic nation, church was very prestigious, so you had to dress up in your best. So they wouldn't come the first time we invited them, so we brought them some new clothes that they would come, and we fed them breakfast, and they actually did come to church. And that day, our pastor called them up to the altar, and they're like, we want to pray over this family. And they're like, we want to give our lives to Jesus, and we want to live like these people do. Incredible. And so from there, they actually did a baby dedication too, and Amy got to be the godmother of the little baby boy. And yeah, so we really saw that through these simple acts that we would do. We got to meet families, they got to come to church. The church loved the people that we always introduced them to. And it was crazy for us because we were in kind of like a situation where it was a hopeless community. Not a lot of people had passion or hope inside of them, and we sometimes we would cling on to that, and our spirits would take that on. But we even noticed that, like, even though there's thousands of people in that community who are homeless, these girls and this family, they actually found a home, and they found God, and their children got healthier because of that. They had a roof over their head, and it really showed us how, like, God does provide for the birds and the flowers, and he even provides for his children, like, if it's the bare necessities, if it's even flying a team halfway across the world just to talk to these people. It's so much like God's heart just to do something like that. So
Incredible. What do you guys think of that? Yeah. Maybe we could do something like that here. Think we could invite people to a service and give them clothes and feed them and then just bring them out to a service?
altar call.
Awesome. Now, let me just interrupt your flow of questions here to ask, did it connect with human trafficking? Like, how did the poverty and the needs of people, did it connect with human trafficking in the way you anticipated it?
Not really. So human trafficking, we kind of had this vision of it was very secretive, but we saw in the Philippines it came up in the side of prostitution. So the United Nations actually defines human trafficking if any minor, so under 18 years old, is being forced into prostitution by their family, which happens a lot in the Philippines, then they're actually being trafficked. So we saw not human trafficking as like this secretive co-op thing. We actually saw it a lot more on the streets. Like, these children were being forced into trafficking. They were being forced to buy drugs, get hooked on drugs, and prostitute themselves out. So it wasn't how we imagined it, but it was really interesting actually to pick up on that and be able to serve some of the children.
Right. Incredible. Well, let me ask you another question here. What was the most impactful lecture week you experienced in Australia? Now, tell people what the lecture week, how that works with YWAM.
Yeah, so I joined YWAM last July, and I went to Australia first, and we were there for 12 weeks, and every week has a different topic on God. So the first week was hearing God's voice, the second was God's character and nature, the third was repentance and forgiveness, which was fun. So yeah, each week had a different topic and a different speaker. The one that I found most impactful was Lordship Week. So that week we had our DTS leader, who was our kind of like head high-up girl. She was speaking on it, and she was not intimidating at all. She was amazing. But it really touched my heart because we always talk about how God is our Lord and Savior, and it kind of gave like a foreshadow of when we're speaking about God, we can explain him as our Savior. We know how to tell people that you sin and God can cover that sin, but we don't really explain what giving your life over to God really is. So in Lordship Week, they were talking about how just the extravagant love of God, that he wants the extreme best for you, and how we can give part of our lives over to God so that he can choose the highest for us. And so that week we were asked to kind of find like the one thing that we want to completely control, the one thing in our lives that we want to have complete control over, that we wouldn't ever want to change, whether it's your 10-year plan or the fact that you want to be married in 5 years. And for me, it was university. I was extremely obsessed with my academic prestige, and just how I would look towards the world, how I looked towards my friends for taking a gap year and not going to university like I had always planned for 4 years in my 10-year plan. And I learned to actually, at the end of the week, I gave that over to God. I tore up my student card, so I didn't even see my end result for high school. I didn't see my grades because that was too much of my identity. And I really wanted my identity to be in God. So I gave it over to him, and I told him, you can have my future, you can have my 10-year plan, you can have my university. And the question that they also posed was, would you love God if? So place like the one thing you want in control, and would you love God if you never went to university? Would you love God if you never got married? And so it really challenged me to actually like weigh the cost. Like, if I never went to university, if I never got a degree, if I always looked like a bum missionary in the eyes of the world, how would that look to people? And would I still love God if I never did that? And after weighing the cost throughout the week, after some pretty sleepless nights, I found out that I would absolutely love God. It wasn't something that I just gave over myself to. It was something that I spent a lot of time thinking about, and Lordship was my favorite week.
Yeah, sounds a bit painful week because it's releasing something that you care about.
Yeah, it was a lot of pain, but it was a lot of beauty in that pain because through that I saw that God knows what we'll love before we even love it. So for me, he showed me what I would love even more by taking some time and giving it over to him. He would give me so much more beauty and blessings in that.
Awesome. Yeah, when we give our lives to Christ in a deeper and deeper way, we receive more and more freedom and grace to embrace just about anything. Mm-hmm. And we set aside those things, and we do get a sense of peace, don't we? An overwhelming peace that God is doing the best that he knows for us, and we don't know the best for ourselves. And when we give those things away, then we can receive whatever he wants. It's awesome. Okay, so you have a couple questions. I know Elena, we have a question from our younger youth. We have a question from the back from Isaiah, he's shaking his head. He's afraid to speak. He's a very shy boy. Yeah, so let me just ask a couple more questions here. How has your relationship with God changed since you began your DTS or discipleship training school?
Yes, I love this question too, because before I did my discipleship training school, I knew about God, but I didn't really know him. I knew the relationship that other people had with God, but I didn't really have that relationship. And so the first week that I was in Australia, I was really confronted by that, just because of some things that I believed about God. And the first week was hearing God's voice. And for me, I had heard God's voice before. I heard God's voice in some of the deepest, darkest moments in my life, but I hadn't heard them in the higher, like, yeah, you did this kind of moments. And so I started to believe this lie that God only cared to speak to us when we were going through hard times, that he only cared to fix us. And my leader actually pointed that out to me, and I'm like, what? No way. But they also said that God speaks to us in everything, and it's what we choose to hear is what we're hearing. So in those dark moments, I really opened my ears up and my heart to receiving something from God. But in my highlights, the me that I had built, I didn't invite God into. So my high moments weren't with God, and therefore I didn't hear his voice. And so I really had to give my entire life over to God. And I spent a lot more sleepless nights just listening to his voice, like waiting on God and learning what his voice actually sounds like, just like a relationship, like building it up, like starting from point A to point B. So I did learn to hear God's voice within those first few weeks of lecture phase, and I was so joyful because I learned that my heart craved to hear God's voice, not just in the bad times, but in the good times. Like being able to talk to God about everything was what I really needed. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we have time for maybe one more question from a preteen, 12-year-old who's going to be on the 18th, 13. So this will be, a soon-to-be teenager. What's your question, Elena? Hey, you can come on up. Yeah. Let her use the mic. Here's a question. Oh, it's on your phone.
How has your faith and understanding in God helped you overcome difficulties and challenges you faced over the past 6 months?
Ooh. Thanks, Lane.
Ooh, perfect.
She asks good questions.
That is a really
All the
good
time.
question. My faith and understanding in God has changed a lot in the past 6 months. For me, one of my greatest challenges that I continually face, like it was shoved in my face for 6 months, was the question that kept rising in my heart, which was, is God good? And that was something like, we all learned about God's character, but the one part that I couldn't understand about God was, is God good? And so I was confronted in everything that I did, from looking at my past, is God good? Like inviting him and seeing, where have you been in this moment? Like, where have you been? Show me that you are good. And especially going out into the Philippines and seeing a lot of chaos and a lot of pain in people's lives. There was a little girl that I was playing with in a red light district. She was adorable. She was wearing a little white dress, and she looked like any other child in the Philippines. And I asked her where her mommy was, and she pointed to a bar that we knew where the manager condoned prostitutes to work undercover. And it really showed me that, like, ouch, that's a lot of pain. That's a lot of pain to see that a little girl knows that her mom is working in a bar, that she lives on the streets, that she doesn't have a safe house, and that she'll grow up in that kind of lifestyle. And I was confronted again with that kind of that faith, like, is God good? Is that something that I have to work through? And I think we all really struggled, especially working with human trafficking and prostitution. In that kind of line of work, we always had to take some time and talk it through with someone else and see if God really is good, and to see if he's in every situation. And so that's something that I had to work through. And I saw, like, through my faith, through choosing in my heart to believe that God is good, like, I was able to see so much of the wider picture. We saw in our time, we were in that district for about a month. 3 girls came out of prostitution into a safe house, and another YWAM in the Philippines kind of program that puts them through 2 years of just learning about God and learning the basic skills and getting your high school diploma. And so I think, I forgot the question, but I went on a tangent. I think the biggest thing for us to learn in that time was to choose, like, what is your heart fighting for? What is your heart trying to decide over? And for me, that was the question, is God good? It kept coming up 6 months in time, and that's a long time to go through that. But that was a question that I really had to weigh in my heart, and that's one that I decided, especially in the Philippines and seeing all that pain, that God was good. He was in every situation. He was working in the hearts of men who would spit in our face, and he was working in the hearts of the grandmas who would hug us and not let us go for 2 hours, and who would tell us all about their families. Like, he was working in everyone's heart, no matter like where on the scale they were at.
Right. Fantastic. Well, you guys give her a hand. Thank you so much. And you can invite her to your house anytime. They have to get her in Apex, obviously. But if you want to hear more details, if you want to hang out, you want to hear more stories, give Sophia a call and invite her over for dinner and get to know her a little more and bless her. And she's such a blessing to us in this church, and it's been so much fun, sort of seeing what you were up to. It was fantastic. So Amanda, will you come up, please? Thank you very much. This is Amanda Kohlhauser. So now that people kind of know what YWAM is, you can take it to where you are. I'm going to give you that.
Wait 1 second. This is going to be my blanket.
Okay, you wear your blanket because you're still acclimatizing. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So you gave us 3 questions. So we will go through those. And we might take one from the floor over here. Isaiah's thinking about one. He might send something on my phone. I'm anticipating interaction with others out there. So be prepared for just about anything.
Do I turn this on?
It's already on.
Okay, sweet.
It was on. Now it's been turned off, probably. Yep. There you go.
Hello. Yes, it is.
So why don't you tell us a little bit, just in a nutshell, where you were, how you got there from here, and why you went.
Okay, well, I first did my DTS 3 years ago, goodness. 3 years ago in Kona, Hawaii. I did my lecture phase there, and then I did a 2-month outreach to Haiti. And I first heard about YWAM from like a friend, and they recommended it because, they were like, oh, hey, Amanda, like, you're, like, just graduated high school. Like, do you want to go to Hawaii? And I was like, yes! And so, TBH, to be completely honest, that was the main reason why I went to Hawaii was because, the main reason I went to YWAM was because it was in Hawaii. But, like,
Is that common, by the way? Do you
No.
have a lot of, okay, I'm just curious, just wondering, because once you get there, people must be saying, why are you here? And there must be a variety of reasons how God leads.
And I had no idea what I was getting into
Right.
at all.
Awesome.
Because, I was at a very, broken place in my life, and I just figured it was just kind of like a generic, Bible thing, where I was like, oh, yeah, I'll just go, learn some, generic Bible stuff. I grew up in a Christian family, whatever, I can do this, and then I'll just go, hang out all around the island. Yeah, completely different, got completely wrecked me. During lecture phase, had my life completely flipped around. And during that time, I heard about these people that were going to launch a YWAM base in Haiti, and God just really put it on my heart to commit to them. So during lecture phase, I tentatively committed to them. Then I did my outreach in Haiti, and it was just like a reaffirmation that that was what I was supposed to do. And then, I went to Haiti, did my outreach, and then I came back home, and then I worked for a little while. I did actually a secondary course through YWAM that was focused on counseling, and worked multiple jobs, awful jobs, but it was worth it. And then beginning around of December 2016, I went back to Hawaii to staff. And it was during that time where, it was kind of like Sophie's experience during the lecture phase, except as a staff member, the focus is now no longer on you or on your spiritual growth. It's now focused on students like Sophie and being focused on their growth. So, keeping up with the students and really being responsible to keep up with them in their spiritual growth and to really keep an eye out for them, really be praying for them, and really like going to war for them on a daily basis. And also just like tons of other responsibilities. For me, the main other responsibility outside of the students was like event planning. So I did a lot of planning for events such like Beach Day for the DTS, which was really fun, and also a bunch of other excursions for my outreach team. So that was very much fun. But the time that I was in Hawaii, like, to be completely honest, as a staff member, I barely even remember it. Because I thought I was, like, super busy, and there was just so much going on. But then once I got to Haiti, like, I didn't even know what busy was. I didn't even know what stress was compared to the time that was in Haiti. Actually, Craig, do you mind going to the first photo? And so, anyways, so when we got to Haiti, we were doing an outreach. We weren't just only doing a normal outreach with normal outreach ministries and whatnot. We were also launching a YWAM base at the same time.
Now, how would that be different? Because establishing a new base and joining a team that's already established, they got it all together, are two different things. Why don't you, because you told me some of the details. Why don't you share a little bit about the challenges there?
So when you're on outreach, you're doing all the, like, first of all, you can't even plan everything. So you don't, like, when we got there, we weren't even completely sure of what everything was to look like, but we took a real leap of faith, and we're like, okay, we're going to do these two things. Oh my goodness, God help us. And so a lot of us were more focused on the outreach, more focused on the students during the outreach, because the responsibilities as a staff member during lecture phase, they continue on into outreach. So I had a one-on-one during lecture phase. Oh, I need to explain what a one-on-one is. So a one-on-one is, as a staff member, you know what a one-on-one is, Sophie, is when you have generally like 1 to 2 people at the students where you meet with them once a week and you process everything that they're learning and everything they're going through. And it's like for the students, it's like a free therapy session weekly, and it continues on to outreach. And so I was that for a person, and they were on my outreach, and so we went on to doing that. And I just lost my mark. I am so sorry. I'm actually a little bit rambling right now. This tends
Well,
to
you're talking
happen
about
to me.
one-on-ones.
Yes, thank you. One-on-ones. So I was more focused on the students rather than more than on the base. And so for the first 2 months, I continued that relationship with that person, focusing on her growth and her experience through the time. And so this photo right here is a photo of me dead center, looking all lovely and not at all sweaty.
You don't look sunburned.
You can't really see in this photo, but I am.
Okay.
And this is our team. So many people. And as you can tell, it's a very diverse group. A lot of Haitians, a lot of people from, was there? No, I was the only Canadian, sorry. And then a lot of people from America, New Zealand.
Is this a picture of the base? I'm seeing a truck.
This is us in Port-au-Prince. Our base
Okay.
was in north of Haiti called Cap-Haïtien.
Right.
So I'll do a quick little introduction. So from the left, I'll just walk over. Sorry, camera people. This was not planned. So this is Marcelise. He was a volunteer. Like, here it goes. Where's the speaker? I'm sorry. And then this is one of the leaders, Kelsey. And right next to her is also another leader. His name is Phillipson. And that's the little baby, Joshim.
Nice.
And then next to Phillipson is Awa, who was a staff. Next to her with the beard is Ben, a student. Below him is another leader, Kathleen from New Zealand. Right above her head was Colby, a student. Above him is Olgi, one of our Haitian volunteers. And then next to him is Matthew, one of our staff. Next to him is, what was your name? He wasn't there for too long. He was just there for 2 months. But he was from Germany. And then below him / above my head is Angelo. He's from the States. He was a staff. And then right beside him with the braids she was there for 2 months. Sydney from the States. Right next to her was Nikki. Next to her is Dory holding a small child. And then next to Dory right there was the owner of the place where we were at right there, Pastor Marcel and his wife, whose name I have forgotten. And then the three people popping a squat is a person who lived at the place, one of our volunteers / translator, Olson, and then one of our students, Justin, from
That's pretty
America.
good, because I've asked people in this church, hey, who's that over there? And they go, I have no idea. They can't even remember. So you've done very, very well.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't commit for a very long time, and then there's people who like came and went, some volunteers. So it was. Forgive me if I forget. Not everyone.
Fantastic. Let me ask a question here.
Okay.
What is a major highlight and what was a major lesson?
Okay. So a major highlight for me was the ability to really be in a relationship-oriented culture. Because, I'm Canadian. I grew up in Canada. So I adopted a more task-oriented mindset. And so going to Haiti was the complete opposite. The culture is very inefficient and very inconvenient in a lot of ways. And it can be really frustrating because their focus is not on getting the job done at a good time, or sometimes not done very well. But they're more focused on like each other, focused on relationships, focusing on just being more relaxed, not being so focused on their schedules. They don't have schedules there, guys. They don't have schedules. And during that time, it was actually this photo right here where I kind of had like an epiphany moment. Me, a couple of friends from my base, and a local friend, we needed to get our tourist visas renewed. They're only good for about 3 months. So we went to the DR, hopped the border. Well, we didn't hop the border. That sounds bad. We went across the border and renewed our 3-month visas. And during that time, I kind of like came to the realization that that was something I had really gotten to experience, was that this like I grew up in a task-oriented culture, but that and within my own personality, I'm more relationship-based, but that was not something I was really able to experience in my own personal culture. And that during that time there, even though like it was a real like frustrating thing to discover, I really discovered that I'm much more relationship oriented, that I really got to explore that and to express that with my relationships, where I wasn't focused on like getting so many things done, and that really a lot of stress out of my life like was removed when I realized like, oh, like people are actually like more important. Like sitting down and talking to this person and hearing about how their day is going is actually more important than me going and getting this job done. I mean, obviously jobs still need to get done and everything. But like when we were coming back, I was looking around and it hit me like, oh wow, like I'm so much more relationship based than I am. I act like, and I was just like laughing because someone said something that like it wasn't even a good joke. It was a really stupid joke. But it was just really funny because the guy's just a really funny guy. And I was just looking around. I was like, man, like, I'm enjoying this. Like, this wasn't planned. This was so spontaneous. I have jobs I need to get done when I go back to the base, but I'm not worried at all because I'm just enjoying myself. I'm getting to enjoy this time with these people. And when I get back home, I'll probably have a coffee with someone. And I was just like, man, like, this is so nice to have discovered this part of me. So that was probably one of my biggest highlights.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And a major lesson that I had to go through in Haiti was learning how to not only like persevere and survive, because there was a lot of spiritual warfare, and it's a very hard living environment to be in, but also having to really find the beauty in all of the suckiness and really finding the joy in everyday living. Because like every couple months our schedule would switch, and it was hard just to like keep ahead of things mentally and being on top of everything. and just really not having like like I'm so busy and I'm like trying to get all this done and living in a community, especially with such a diverse group, can be a little conflicting and a little dramatic at times, and just really having to decide to choose to be happy despite the circumstance. Because as far as conflict, you can deal with that, you can address it, but when it the whole situation thing, there's very little ways that you can improve it in such a short amount of time. And during this time, I actually had a family member die of cancer while I was away, and I wasn't able to attend the funeral. And I was getting back into this depressive mental funk, and I came to this crossroads. I was like, okay, either I can allow my mental state to continue down this point, or I can choose every day to wake up to try to find something good about today, and to choose to find positivity in everything.
That's good.
And so there were so many sucky things, but it helped so much when I was like, no, I'm choosing to be happy. If I woke up and it didn't rain on me, because I slept on the balcony, I was like, yay, it didn't rain on me. Or yay, I woke up with enough time to make coffee. Instead of oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I have a sore back. It's nope, I get to go make coffee. Awesome. Or if I had a conflict with someone, be awesome, this is a time for me to deepen this relationship with this person. Or if it's I didn't like breakfast or something, be you know what, that's fine. That's just going to deepen my character. Or maybe I'll like this tomorrow. That's fine. And just really focusing on the positive. Because that's something I haven't really done in my lifetime. And it was just a really good lesson for me to take on. If I can survive, I learned that if I can survive in Haiti and find beauty in the hard times in Haiti, I can do that anywhere. So
Awesome.
yes,
Last question.
yes.
Future plans with Haiti. All right, what's your thoughts? Obviously, you have so much that you know about not only the country in general, but the different teams and all kinds of ministries apart from YWAM, but other churches that you've told me about, other things that are going on. You just have a lifetime of knowledge on how to pray effectively about Haiti. But what are your plans? Do you have some thoughts and plans for Haiti yourself?
I definitely learned through my time with YWAM, even though my time with YWAM was a limited time, my time with Haiti is something that's going to continue on and on. I don't have a set date to go back to Haiti, but I know I want to go to school and I want to be involved more with community development and employment opportunity development, and to continue an education somewhere down that track and to bring that into Haiti. Because there's so many nonprofit organizations there, and there are a lot of them that are doing a lot of good. But what I noticed in my time in Haiti is that so many people need jobs. And I mean, you can go and you can pray for people, and that is awesome. That's definitely something that's needed. But I feel like my role is more towards that genre. I mean, obviously, I'm still gonna be involved in ministry, and obviously, just going out for random prayer walks and everything. But I feel like my main tool to continue on is to do something more on that frontier. And I also kind of met someone while I was down there. So, I mean,
Do we have time to go into that? Do we have a picture? Do we have
No,
Greg,
I didn't-
any picture? Oh, no,
I didn't
that's
put a picture of him purposefully. Because I was I'll mention him briefly, and then maybe he won't notice.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, I didn't put a photo
Mom's the
of
word.
him.
Don't say anything. Good.
But yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the future is exactly with that guy, but I do have a lot of God-given peace about it, and he's not my motivation for going back. Just saying, he's just more like a cherry on top.
Because we'll be asking, so you're going back to Haiti. What is your deeper motivation? Is it the guy or no? I'm just kidding.
No.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Now, don't be afraid. Oh, I see a question. We have time. We have time for one question. Okay, thanks, George.
And with your life experience now that you have, since you've gone to another country or several countries, and you've seen what's going on in those places,
I would say get rid of all of your expectations about what's going to happen, because it's not going to be anything you expected. Like, that's probably the biggest lesson I had to go through. Well, one of the many lessons I had to go through was realizing that I could have all these expectations and all these ideas of what is going to happen, but if I hold on to those expectations, I'm just going to be disappointed. And to really just let go and let God teach you whatever he wants to teach you while you're being there. So,
Wow, great. Thanks, George.
yes,
Well,
excellent question.
Thank you, Amanda. Clap for her. Thank you so much. I can do that. So who wants to go with YWAM someplace? Did you get the sense that YWAM is maybe a little bit about discipleship? About giving your life to Jesus? Maybe a little bit more in a deeper way? And people helping you do that? Now, how is that different than the church? How is that different than what we do on a regular basis every day? Is that not the same command and commission to make disciples here and wherever? It's awesome. It's so fantastic when people go to do that and they get equipped to do that and they get blessed there and they get special even gifts to minister cross-culturally. And, you know, it's the same thing that we're doing here. We're looking for God to gift us to be a blessing, to make disciples of people in this city. You talked about employment. You know, Amanda, that's a big issue in Penticton. If we can get a group of people to help people get jobs and be employed that are unemployable right now, would be fantastic. We have a huge need for that. So there's the discipleship, there's the practicality. I think it's a lot like church. Now, how do we make Cheers in 2018 a little bit more about that? I'm curious about that, aren't you? I can't wait to get together with the two of you individually together, but maybe even having like a reunion for some YWAM people and seeing how are you guys taking, you know, what God has given you out there, and how are you using that here? How are you being a blessing? How are you going to continue to be a blessing? I'm really excited about that. Isn't it great to have some young people doing that? Now, how old do you have to be? Is there a cutoff point? You have to be like, you can't go if you're over 25, isn't that right?
No, I actually had someone in my test who was 60, so it's a little bit.
So,
66.
66. So if you're 66, I'm sorry, you can't go. But anybody else, you can do that. I wonder if they could actually do a YWAM base here in Penticton. A School of Discipleship? Okay. Things to think about, guys. Did you learn anything this morning? Aren't you inspired by what you see happening in not just, you know, Sophia's and Amanda's life, but what you see young people choosing to do, and older people up to apparently the age of 66 or older. You can do anything at any age if we put no limit on what God can do with us. When you think of 2018, think about that. Love the idea of, you know, things will not be how I expect. Think about that for 2018. You know, swing for the fences. Think about what you could possibly do for God and the people in your life and in your neighborhood and in your workplace. How can you be a great blessing to them and see God be a blessing to them? How can God work through you in some of the similar ways that we've seen with you two guys, you know, out in the world? In a crazy place like Haiti, I say crazy because if you know anything about Haiti, they experience, you know, terrible weather conditions almost every single year, and their world gets destroyed and tipped upside down, and people are constantly rebuilding it. And then you look at the Philippines and ongoing huge issues with poverty and prostitution and human trafficking. You know, we think of how lucky we are here in Penticton, but there's some major needs here in Penticton that we can respond to immediately. So that's what we want to be thinking about and praying for in 2018 as a church. Looking for God's vision and his practical goals on being a blessing and seeing his kingdom come here this year. So let's just pray. Lord, we thank you for Amanda and Sophia. We thank you for their families, that they blessed them and supported them and had the courage to release them into these, you know, somewhat scary and dangerous situations, and to trust them for these months that you would provide protection and sustenance for them and their teams. Thank you for the faith that you placed in the families in the parents to let their kids do these things. And give us all that kind of faith that we would trust our kids to go out and follow you and do whatever, to follow your agenda and to abandon safety and plans and ambitions and dreams to embrace your dreams. So Lord, as a church, we want to have that same attitude with 2018. We want you to lead us, to guide us, to inspire us, to give us dreams and vision and revelation on what are your plans and goals for us. Thank you that we're surrounded by a host of people that inspire us. And let us be similarly inspiring people to those that need to be blessed by you, to be loved by you, to be cared by you. Like Amanda was saying, to be in relationship is so important, that we would share your presence and your love with others. Lord, we ask for this blessing, and a blessing on, the two young ladies. Thank you for bringing them back safely, that they're filled with, kingdom stories about you and your goodness and your faithfulness. We thank you as a church for bringing them back and giving us the wisdom to support them and send them out and to track with them and to be inspired by what you're doing in their lives. We ask your blessing on us and make us a blessing to Penticton in 2018. We ask for this in Jesus' name. Amen.